All righty, let's get right to it. Former 49ers Super Bowl champion Jesse Sapolu joining us. Jesse, thank you so much for coming on with us. Really appreciate it.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Jesse.
All right, so I've been thinking about how I'm phrasing this, and I'm not going to do it right, but this move may work, it may not work, but how strange is it to you that Jimmy Garoppolo is now the backup quarterback to Trey Lance?
Well, it's not strange at all, really, from my perspective, because, I went through it as a player. We had a Hall of Famer that sat on the bench for over 3 years. So there's a saying, you can never have enough great football players. But to me, the number one thing is, how is this going to work? Well, we know from experience that Jimmy is the ultimate team guy, and I think that's the only way this is going to work. But when I saw that, I'm like, okay, first of all, we're not going to lose him for nothing. Second of all, if he's going to be the backup, now we got a backup that played in the Super Bowl and took us on the verge of another Super Bowl. So from that standpoint, I'm happy about that.
Jesse, let me ask you this, man, because as a fan, a spectator, and a guy like myself not in the know, all we hear is what's happening in practice. Hardly anybody's playing in the games. But I'll tell you this, Jesse, the Niners are talked about nationally like they're going to the Super Bowl. And I'm telling my partner, regardless of who's behind center, what's going on with your unit outside of Trent Williams? Is it too soon to even question the Niners O-line? Or, Kyle said musical chairs when he did his State of the Union earlier. How concerned are you, or should we be, about the Niners O-line going into Week 1 in Chicago?
Well, it is a concern. All this talk about, Trey and
Right.
and Brock, that's not going to be of any good if that group up front doesn't perform. But, I think the guys, especially the inside guys, have to grow up quick. We lost a leader in Mac to retirement. We lost our left guard in free agency. So, Trent is the main guy, of course. But, it's a mindset, and it's really up to the guys to come together as a group. Sometimes the best, in fact, a lot of times the best offensive line is not the most talented 5 individuals. It's the guys who can pick up and communicate, especially in tough situations. So from that standpoint, I'm hoping that can happen for us.
Jesse Sapolu joining us on 95.7 The Game, former 49er great. Hey, Jesse, I'm going to ask you to fact check something for me, because I heard a stat about you about an hour ago, and it's unbelievable. In your professional career, the worst team you were on was 10-6?
Yes, sir.
Wow. They could call you Bill Russell.
I won the Super Bowl going 10-6, and the one year I missed the playoffs, we went 10-6, and we started off real slow. I think we were 2-4, and then we made a run at the end, and we beat up the Chicago Bears on a Monday night. I think 55-17, and Chicago won their division. But anyways, George Seifert, at that time, Matt Millen left us to go to the Redskins, and he called George and said, "Hey, George, everybody's talking. Please don't let these guys back in the playoffs." So,
Gotcha.
That's the 1 year I missed the playoffs. But, our record then was 10-6.
Jesse Sapolu joining us on 95.7 The Game. When you were on the team and Joe was going through what Joe was going through with Steve, when Steve wasn't playing, did you know he was as great as he was going to be? And if not, when did you see this guy's the man?
Honestly, I knew Steve was better than a lot of quarterbacks. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say I knew he was a Hall of Famer, but I knew we had a talent back there. Remember, Steve was probably the fastest quarterback in the league back then,
right,
at that time. But we knew that Joe missed significant time, but I also knew that he had some left. He had something left. So I was indecisive from my standpoint if it was time for Steve to step up, or should we be patient, and because I felt like Joe had something left, and I was right, because he went to Kansas City, and if it wasn't for the concussion in Buffalo, he would have taken Kansas City to the Super Bowl, and that's the first time they would be in the Super Bowl since Super Bowl III or something like that. So, I wasn't wrong with that, but at the same time, Steve was able to develop and take us to the big game and won it all.
Jesse, I just want to kind of tap into your experience, and you talked about it earlier with the locker room and the Hall of Famer players you play with and coaches, but back to Trey Lance. We can't ignore the fact that Jimmy is coming back, the possibilities, and I'm rooting for Trey, but if it were up to you, Jesse, and you were coach, how many games would you give the kid? Does he have 17 just because they picked him where they did? If 5 subpar games, how would you dissect that position on how many games you'd give the kid?
Well, that's a great question. But to me, I think, we made the decision to go with Trey. Again, I'm speaking from my experiences and the fact that if Steve sat for 3 years, I felt like it would have been advantageous. But, like you said, we picked him high. He showed flashes of making some great plays. Honestly, we have to put the trust in Kyle Shanahan. He's coached our team well. I mean, he's taken us. We were half a quarter from winning it all, and then to beat the Rams, who became the eventual champions that many times. And I knew to try to beat them 3 times in 1 year. The Rams got some superstars. I thought Kyle did a great job with that, but I think they know what goes on an everyday basis, and if they weren't sure that this Jimmy move was going to work, I don't think they would pull the trigger.
I appreciate that. Let me ask you this. I was kidding with my partner because, Jesse, I got 49er diehard fans, and they say this about their team and during your era. When we go to the Super Bowl, we win. Well, guess what? The last few and the NFC Championship haven't gone that way. Jesse, how much pressure is on Kyle Shanahan, not just to get close, but actually to get it done and be up there with the Walshes and Seiferts?
Well, there's pressure. But you also have to look at the few people that came before Kyle, the few coaches. They're great men, and there were great coaches elsewhere, but they kind of failed when they came here. Kyle kind of brought us back to respectability and competitiveness. I think I can honestly say 49er fans are walking around with their chest, puffed out in the last 3 years compared to the 5 years before that, and I fly in from LA for every home game, and it was depressing when we went 2-14, 6-10 or 8-8, but now to be competitive, and to see our fan base go over to opposing stadiums and take it over, there's a reason for that. They wouldn't do that if we were 5-11. The reason is because our team is pretty darn good. So. Take it from there and keep taking our shots. I won 4 Super Bowls, but I played in 8 NFC Championship games. So the games that I remember, the 4 losses, and of course some of them to Dallas and to the Redskins when they had the Hogs, the Giants when they had Lawrence Taylor. Those were some tough competition. But for us to get to the Super Bowl and win it all, I know we were spoiled at 5-0 during our time, but I think if Kyle wins one, his legacy will be right up there. He doesn't have to win, 3 or 4 like Bill and George did. But I think if he wins one, this fan base will go nuts.
Hey, Jesse, they cheated you guys 1 year against the Redskins at RFK, that flag on Ronnie Lott. You remember that?
Year, man.
I was watching that with Pop, Steiny.
That was my rookie year. I remember that. Yeah.
Hey, Jesse, and we're joined by Jesse Sapolu, former 49ers great. When I think of basketball, they have a 5-man lineup. And if you take the superstar out of a basketball lineup, they're just not at all the same team. is there any comparison to be made between a 5-man basketball lineup and a 5-man offensive line to the point where once they get Trent Williams back, he fixes more than just that position. He solidifies the entire line. Is that what happens, or it's not that simple?
Well, that's what happens. Definitely. If he affects how the other 4 guys' confidence and the way they perform, then that affects more than just the 5 offensive linemen. I mean, you look at Golden State, with the run they're making. Tell me if they're going to win all these championships without Draymond Green.
Right.
Somebody's got to be out there doing the dirty work. That's, if you're not experienced in watching basketball, you don't understand how significant his role is.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody is mesmerized by Steph's long three, and for good reason. And Thompson, but without Draymond, that does all the dirty work. A lot of the other stuff doesn't really matter.
Jess, let me ask you about Kittle, man, because this is where I'm coming from, and I'm no coach. You tell me what you think. I think this dude is being underutilized in the passing game. He puts up numbers, but, Jesse, I believe this dude is a top 2 tight end pass catcher in the league, but every time I say something about I want to see him featured more, they say, oh, he's a blocking tight end. I get it, and that's a choice, but is that an indictment on the O-line that people say, oh, he's a blocking tight end? Can they kind of change that and give me more Kittle in the passing game?
Well, I think George's style is completely different, a little, from the great tight end from the Kansas City Chiefs, Kelsey.
Right.
He's more of a receiving tight end. Now, does that mean George can't catch? Come on, we won a lot of big games with George being the main guy that we go to in the passing game. Remember the New Orleans game that we came back and that humongous play that he made with guys pulling at his face mask. But as far as, people saying that, Kyle Shanahan's very innovative as far as our running game. Well, there's a reason why. He can do a lot of different things because we have a tight end that's the best blocking tight end in the league. Unfortunately, people start looking at that and label him as that. But, George Kittle has made some big catches, the playoff game against Green Bay, or the regular season on a Monday night. He made that long catch. He made some key catches for us when the game's on the line. So that's, people can put any type of label on it. I think inside that locker room and inside that football team, they know what George's worth is to us.
Jesse, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Generous with your time, and it's going to be, tell you what, man, it's going to be a lot of fun this year watching this team.
Yep. Thank you for having us, guys. Go Niners.
All righty, that's Jesse Sapolu, one of the greats in 49er history.